I think the tush push is after last week going to be
Back in play.
TV. No, I mean, think about Kansas City. I mean, now Buffalo's not quite as proficient at it, and I don't know why it's always like, hey, let's make him go left. Like on 4th and inches, let's try to go over the left guard. I know Chris Jones is over there, but how did it work out? I think Kansas City has shown enough to make you think this could be not an automatic, when it comes to, and that's such a key play for them because it kind of allows them to call the game in the way that they want to call the game. You can be less aggressive on 3rd and 5, because if we fall forward for 9 feet, we're going to just do this shit. It's time for a message from BetMGM, the sportsbook board in Vegas. The big game is coming up. New customers sign up and get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Then check back for promotions like odds boosts, no sweat bets, and NBA and NHL second chance promos, all from the sportsbook born in Vegas. Welcome to the show, everybody. Just me here sitting at home. Kind of the weirdest show of the year is this show because I'm used to this time of the week getting ready to give you anywhere from 2 conference championship games to, a full slate of Sunday football previews, and we got nothing to talk about. I mean, the Pro Bowl's going on. I saw briefly a highlight of Justin Jefferson trying to catch a ball with like big, like Mario Brothers gloves on, like big white gloves. So I'm not going to be watching the Pro Bowl. And there's no game on this weekend. We're going to be beating this game into submission next week. I mean, we're going to cover it from every angle, starting actually Monday. And we'll talk about it a little bit today. But most of today is like, listen, I'm tired. I know people are probably tired of hearing about the same game. You will be by next week. I'm just going to shoot the shit with Ryen Russillo a little bit today. If you're really into hardcore football, if you're one of those people that comes from, league wide to hear about your favorite team, maybe this pod's not going to be for you. We're not going to cover a ton of ball today. We're just going to shoot the shit, talk about Super Bowl week, kind of what it's all about, tell stories. No real roadmap. So I apologize in advance. If you like a different kind of show, this show's not going to be like the 3-hour live shows where we rifle through games or get into the X's and O's heavily. Another thing is looking forward to the off season. I am, but looking ahead to the off season, like every show is not going to be hardcore football. And I just wanted to give some of the folks who are new to this show, maybe in the past year, a little sneak peek of what you might get, some slow off-season day. We're going to have a lot of fun in the off-season. It's not going to be all football. It's not going to be all X's and O's. We'll have some guests. We'll shoot the shit. And, that's the kind of day that today feels like. So have my buddy Ryan on. Got that in the can. That's coming up. Certainly had fun with him, but the conversation goes everywhere. So, please, if you're like at the end of the thing, you're like, oh, this sucks. This conversation's going everywhere. It's kind of the way we drew it up today because we didn't draw it up. Here's what I got for you in the open. I want to lay out what the next couple weeks is going to look like. Obviously, today there is no live show. Monday, there won't be a live show. That Monday, we're going to record Sunday night to drop it Monday morning. We'll probably look backwards at the season, give out some awards, that sort of thing. Shoot the breeze. I'll be in studio or at least on Zoom with Dr. Fax, Macon, and maybe we'll have a guest. And then next week, we're going to get down to New Orleans. I plan on getting there Wednesday, and we're going to be making content from the minute we get down there. We're going to have a bunch of interviews. Bo, Nate, Macon's making the trip. Macon is making is this his first Greenlight trip? This might be his first Greenlight trip he's ever agreed to come on. So to what I owe the occasion, I guess we'll find out. I think New Orleans is it's a hard city to turn down. Can't wait to get down there. And I already know some of the names that we're going to be talking to. Like, for instance, trying to set something up right now with Jameis Winston. Got to spend time with him at Inside the NFL this week. That dude's awesome. Love J-Bo. J-Boo. Sorry, what do I call him? Bo. What's it? Bo calls him J-Boo. I love Jameis Winston. Big Jameis Winston fan. And it was great having him on the show. But, like this is kind of how we do things. We get down there, you text some friends, you hope to run into somebody at Radio Row. You hope to run into somebody maybe at a party and say, hey, you want to shoot a pod the next day? So we will be dropping content with regularity. The guys will be out and about, kind of like walking around and doing the man on the street thing. But we're also going to have our normal podcast, a Friday live show. That'll be your heavy duty preview. And there'll be a lot of content floating around that thing. So look for us Monday with another show like this, recorded in the can, ready for you in the morning. And then later that week on Friday, we will have the live show, but with a lot in between. So looking forward to that. As for football news, just a couple quick notes. And I will talk about the game specifically, just give you a little taste of what I think out the gate in the interview with Ryan. This is a crazy time of year for people that are still in it. You've got what, 10 days now, and I can remember the first time that I was getting close to playing in the biggest game of my life. And it wasn't even close because of where I played before. And you think my life is going to change in 10 days and 7 days and 5 days. And you're riding the bus over to the stadium. You're like, you go to bed the night before. You're like, my life is going to change forever tomorrow, one way or another. I can remember people ask me, do you remember speeches that coaches gave? Do you remember things that coaches said? Do you remember coaching points? Kind of went through a couple of those on Inside the NFL this week. But for the most part, no. It is such a blur. The adrenaline, the movement, like you're never sitting still. You're never alone. It truly feels like a whirlwind. And honestly, the things I remember the most are little moments and little statements, things people said leading up to the game. Like I can remember Rob Ninkovich telling me, hey, man, this is great and all, but if we lose this game, you're going to wish you were never in it. There is nothing worse than losing a Super Bowl. You will wish you went 0-16 because this is back in the day when there were 16 games. Had to walk uphill in the snow both ways. But the feeling's all the same. Like, listen, I never had the misfortune of losing one. I was lucky, got there twice, won twice, was on some great teams. But I will tell you, staring it in the face, 28-3 at the half, looking over to the right at Rob Ninkovich and being like, oh, fuck that thing you said, huh? And thinking, hey, like, we're going to lose this game. My life is different forever. I might go into hiding. You might never see me again. I've said this before, you certainly wouldn't see me on this podcast. So the range of emotions that you're preparing to feel one way or the other, it's crazy. I remember getting to the Super Bowl in Houston in 2017. 2016 was the football season. 17 was the Super Bowl with the Patriots, and walking up to my room, shutting the door, and I tell this story all the time, it felt like there were 1 million people outside my room. You never feel alone. From the minute you get on site in the city, people are asking you to do things. People are asking you to meet them places. People are asking you for tickets. There are parties every night. And honestly, I know people on here think of me as this fun-loving stoner, but when I played football, I was all fucking business. Like, it was all about everything built towards Sunday. Like, I wanted to be in my room early. I wanted to go to sleep early. I wanted to study. I wanted to have a good time, but I didn't want to be fucking bothered. I didn't want to be taken out of my routine. And to go to the Super Bowl and play in the Super Bowl is a routine-oriented guy's nightmare. It really is. And that's most of the guys in the NFL. We fall into a routine, and it's kind of our lifeblood. Everything's going to be different. It's one of the reasons we always talk about the first week is the most important week of preparation. You talk about a guy might be dinged coming out of the conference championship. Well, if he didn't get any practice time the first week, it's not like he's going to get a bunch of great reps practicing at the University of Minnesota or whatever it is, like where we went, which was a crazy Super Bowl in and of itself. You talk about something like Minnesota, where the layout for the Super Bowl is tremendous. It's a great host city, the whole thing. But the problem is, it's fucking 0 degrees outside, literally. And so you can't leave the Mall of America. The entire team gets sick, hooked up to IV bags, spent the last 3 days thinking, damn, dude, get a cold like twice a year, get sick like twice a year. It just so happened to be the week of the Super Bowl. It's just like, don't let anything fuck my Sunday up. And, you can't help but be pissed off sitting in your room and like, I've had to run around this city all week and go to different things, media engagements, the whole thing, which is very cool the first time you go, which sounds like a very spoiled thing to say. But like, I'm just telling you, as a football player, the second time you go, I don't give a fuck about the media day. I just want to play the football game. And I vividly remember watching film in the hotel, and I had to stop watching film to go to a party that the team is putting on, like on a Friday evening. So you're getting ready to play the biggest game of your life, and you have to juggle all this stuff, the IV bags, the getting enough sleep, the injuries, the bus ride over to the facility that you're not used to, the practice field, the practice facility the coaches aren't used to, the training room that's different. At the end of the day, it's a fucking game. It's a football game, but it's all the distractions and the taking you out of your routine that can make people feel unsettled in a week. You know how baseball players, they got to have everything superstitious. They got to have everything the same way, the whole thing. Football players are like that too, just minus the superstition. We get into grooves. And so going to travel and playing the Super Bowl is the ultimate test for a coach and for a group of leaders on a team. They're like, how can we keep everybody locked in? And how can we keep everything as normal as possible in a situation that's totally abnormal? So that's what those guys are going through right now, or getting ready to go through. Going down to New Orleans, and they're sitting here thinking, in 10 days, my life changes forever. And every minute between today and next Sunday, I need to be using in a way that's efficient and productive and goes towards winning this football game. Like every minute, you're counting every minute. So an incredibly intense time for these teams, and two teams that have been there before. So this should be a hell of a lot of fun. Can't wait. We'll dive more into the game a little bit more. But, man, it goes by in a flash. Really, it does. And even the games, I'm telling you, I remember vividly the most mundane games of my career. Those Super Bowls, they feel like they're racing by at the speed of light. I'm like catching little glimmers of what happened in my mind's eye. But like I could almost – the feeling in Houston, the first Super Bowl I played in, it must be adrenaline, but it was like this. I got a smell in my head. I got like it's almost like a noise. It's so intense. There's like a ringing in your ears. It's crazy. It feels like the Varsity Blues montage. Everything's just fucking cinematic. And when you get out there, everybody's playing so fast. So fast. That's why in that first Super Bowl for me, there's a little story. I was a third down guy by the end of it. Ended up being a third down guy for the Patriots down the stretch in the playoffs. And we couldn't get to third down for most of the first half. I'm sitting there cold like, holy shit, I've waited my whole life for this. I haven't even played the first, maybe gotten 2-3 snaps. The first snap of the game, we're 3-man rush, and I'm anchoring on the tackle, and the guard comes from inside, and you see him coming, you try to anchor and turn, and my knee got caught in that turf, and I chipped a little piece of cartilage or bone off, but it felt like a gunshot went off my damn knee. I'm like, damn, I already fucking hurt myself the first play of the game. And the intensity of the moment, you're just like, all right, next thing. Like, you just move on. You're like, did I just tear something in my knee? You don't even have time to think about it. Your brain can't even process it. I'm running around like one of those monkeys from Space Odyssey in the beginning of that movie. You're just like, it's primal. It's totally primal. Is this making sense to you, Matt? Like, I know you haven't lived it, but can you get in the picture in your head? It's like
If I had seen Space Odyssey, I feel like it would be a perfectly clear picture. But
I'm
yes, it
just
does
saying,
make
playing
sense.
in the Super Bowl, that it's just so intense that your brain's not ready to process it. The sights, the smells.
I feel
I
like
don't even,
it's such a culturally iconic moment that I wouldn't even be able to process like playing in front of 50 million people. Like when I think about doing a
right.
live stream with 4,000 people, I'm nervous. When I think about a video having 100,000 views, I'm like, fuck, my voice was in there one time. That's crazy. And that's like another 500 or 5,000. Like, I don't even want to do the
I'd been
math
in the
times
NFL for I've been
more.
in the NFL for 10 years, played in front of 80,000 people, been on Monday Night Football, been on, barely on Monday Night Football, but the whole thing, like, no matter where you've been, like, there's just nothing like it. And it feels like you're at a global event. I remember like walking around on the field before the game, and I used to take my little Phil Collins lap and just walk around the field. That was something I always did. And like, you get out and you get to walking around the field, and it's like, you're like, it's crazy. You're just seeing the world media there and like celebrities, and you're just like, it really drives home. My God, there is the possibility that I could fuck this up in front of everyone, like badly. And I think that's the flip side of getting this far and enjoying it. That's what Rob Ninkovich was talking about.
There's also the flip side of like the potential for glory. Think about somebody like David Tyree with a career that otherwise wouldn't be super memorable. People wouldn't know his name, but like the opportunity to make an incredible play in that game that will live forever is like the flip side to that coin. And emotionally, I feel like going through either side of that would be trying.
Well, listen, there was like, for me, it was like, oh, I could come up with the big play. I could, if I could just get a piece of the ball at some point, or like, hey, look at how Brandon Graham's life's changed.
Imagine if you don't draw that flag.
Well, no, more so, well, for the team maybe, but nobody remembers that. Imagine
But
if
you
it
guys
was,
don't win the game like
no, I know,
like
but
real
imagine,
real ones remember.
yeah, but imagine if it's a roughing the passer. What I'm talking about is how your life experience changes. Like, Brandon Graham is now a hero. Brandon Graham's had a great career, but he's like a god. And it's one play, and it's the same thing for Tyree, as you mentioned, or for me, like drawing a hold or whatever, like something you might mention as a key play in the game, which was certainly a big deal to me to contribute in that way. But I'm on the ground on top of Matt Ryan, and I can't see anything. I know I just hit him. I know it was a little low. I was like, oh my God, did I sack him? Did I rough him? Did I get held? Like, all these thoughts in my head are going like at a million miles an hour, and all you can do is listen to the crowd, and you're not even sure due to like the fact that it's a neutral site, and
I
it's just,
imagine you had a flurry of those emotions on BG's play as well, because you're like right there, and it's kind of
oh, was it my guy that knocked the ball out? Like, because I was bullying the guy. So there's just, you just don't know. And it was crazy, the range of like, oh my God, my life, for the split second that I thought when I saw a flag on the ground that it was roughing, I was like, I just lost the Super Bowl. That's all I did today. Like, of note. And my heart sank. But then you look up and you're like, oh my God, it's the opposite. Or, it's not the exact opposite, but you're like, I helped. And so, I feel for the guys that are out there. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, but boy, your ass is on the line. And so, biggest spectacle in pro sports in America, in my opinion. It just, there's nothing like it. And I love it so much that I'm going to go down to New Orleans and leave Saturday night so I can watch it at home with the fellas, and we'll be ready to wrap that thing up on Monday. Just to let you guys know, I will be taking a break after the season. I just wanted to have that conversation with you now. I'm pretty burnt out, and it's been a long season like everybody is that covers the NFL, and I need some time. So I'll be taking a little bit of time. We'll give you some more on that as we get closer. The couple of headlines are just kind of NFL talking points over the next couple of days. Like, Trey Hendrickson is making the rounds. talking about the fact that Cincy may not get a deal done with him. They can't pay everybody. He's due a deal. You remember that whole thing this year. Trey Hendrickson, of course, Defensive Player of the Year nominee on a very bad defense, but basically kept them in the fight in a lot of situations. He's the only guy that could really rush the passer for him. Is he a candidate to play somewhere else next year? That's the question being asked. Listen, Al Golden is going to be the defensive coordinator. He's actually my old ball coach. Before he was in Notre Dame, he was at Virginia many moons ago. And I really like Al. I'd like to see him succeed. Wouldn't exactly be giving him a full deck, especially on a team that expects to be contending for a Super Bowl title, to not have the one guy that can get consistent pressure for you. So if I'm the Bengals, I'm trying to make this work, because the alternative is drafting, and you haven't been great drafting edge guys as of late. There's been some misses. And I guess the draft is a little bit deeper. I'm not a draft guy, but I heard today there's more defensive linemen in this draft, so you might be able to grab a couple of them, in April. But God, it's a hell of a chance to take when you're like, the window's always open with Joe Burrow. But as bad as the defense was last year, you're going to have to new scheme, bunch of new players, and you're going to subtract your best player on defense, the only guy who can really get buckets for you. That's a tough look. But if he's not there, I'll throw out a name of a couple teams. I heard some people talking about the Packers. I got you. But how about Detroit? Ton of cap space. Pair him with Hutchinson, couple WDs out there. And I actually think that's the one thing that could really help them out, would be a consistent pass rush. Like, listen, they had problems behind the defensive line, but once Aiden Hutchinson went down, they were even more glaring, the injuries that happened, that whole thing. You can cover up a lot with good pass rush. And if you had Hutchinson fully healthy, God willing, he gets back from this injury healthy, and Trey Hendrickson, who's north of 30 now, and, maybe a guy you're not comfortable throwing like a long-term deal at, but his production has not dipped, and he's a technician. I think he's going to continue to play well deep into his, the twilight years of his career, because he's a technician. He's got good hands, and his get-off is still pretty good. So I'd like to see, him on a good football team, and I think that kind of fits the bill, a team that's willing to take a shot on a guy like that. Definitely a Detroit, a Buffalo. Listen, if Buffalo weren't in the same damn conference, I think it'd be perfect. Buffalo doesn't have anybody. Well, I don't want to say doesn't have anybody, but they just did not have the kind of pass rush that was difference making down the stretch at all. And so you need somebody to win a rush. This is a guy that can definitely win a rush for you. I feel like Buffalo would love him. But the problem is Cincinnati is not in their right minds to trade him to a team that they're probably going to have to beat 50-50, going to see in the playoffs if you plan on going there. Let's give the Buffalo Bills something they were missing this year. They have, the offense was humming, the quarterback, the whole thing. Let's give them a 17-sack guy. Like, probably not the move you want to make in conference. But either way, I think Trey's going to play well next year, the year after. If he can stay healthy, I think it'd be a good investment for somebody. I think the best investment might be right at home, Cincinnati. But they got to work the math out. The other thing that I just want to note is, and we're going to talk about this down the line, but I don't know if there's a coordinator hire this offseason. I mean, I'm sure you can make an argument for somebody else, but a more impactful hire for the NFL at large than the Houston Texans offensive coordinator position. Do they go with like a Gerard Johnson, who is like the familiarity pick? He's in the building. Him and CJ Stroud, really get along. They've also interviewed Jeff Nixon. I think he's a Syracuse guy. Of course, they brought in a Rams tree guy, Rams passing game coordinator, Nick Caley, also connected to Cassera through New England. So the interview process has started. I know Frank Smith's name's not as hot, but maybe Dolphins fans can tell me. It was hot for a second, and it feels like the stock dropped on, anybody from that staff. But like, they're looking at a Shanahan kind of guy from, the McVay tree. I think it fits their run game. in Miami, they've made a living out of getting the ball out quickly. And, I think for CJ, somebody who understands protections for sure, but somebody who also understands how to get the ball out. So I'm just throwing a couple names out here, but I wonder what maybe somebody from the McDaniel tree pops up now. I mean, you've got there's a million guys coming from the McVay tree, and that tree always bears fruit. But
they got an interview with the O'Connell tree with Grant Udinsky from the Vikings.
Listen, and my knowledge doesn't.
And Brian Johnson, the Eagles,
former Eagles coordinator. Yeah, listen, my knowledge doesn't go too deep on assistant coaches in the NFL. I know there's some guys that I think can coach their asses off, and there's some trees that you're just I'm not going to second guess hiring a guy from under McVay. But no matter what you do, I think this is one of the most important hires in the entire league this year, because I think CJ Stroud he has an opportunity to be in that top 5 neighborhood. I really do. And I know people are saying after year 2, oh, that's probably more what he's like. They had a terrible time protecting him. And, obviously Bobby Slowick, who I think did a really nice job year 1, just couldn't foster any growth with that group. And, I'm not making excuses for the kid, but it is what it is. He's good for the league. If Houston's playing well, it's good for the league. I also think it's a really impactful, signing, because if they can take that next step, I think they're going to be scary. I really do. I mean, we said it before this year and they didn't take the next step. I think scheme has a lot to do with that, right? Injuries too. But next year they could be one of those scary teams that are very impactful around the league. And also you're sitting there in a division with Jacksonville, right? With Tennessee, with Indy. If they figure their shit out, they could be hosting multiple playoff games. I don't want to get out over my skis, but the quarterback's good enough. You got to build around him. And if they fuck it up, we're just going to see a really potentially fun to watch quarterback. We saw it year 1 kind of flounder through the first contract. And that's not what you want to see for Houston. So this is a really big deal. Them getting this hire right. I haven't read up too much other than who they have been interviewing, and I'm throwing a name in the hat, but hey, if you're a fan of the Houston Texans, what do you want to happen? Leave it in the comments.
And an in-division hire that I think has been a little bit underrated is Louis Anarumo going to the Colts. I feel like he's a guy that everybody was high on. We're talking about him as a head coaching candidate 13 months ago, and the Bengals are cheap. They didn't give him anything to work with. They put all of their money on offense, and I don't think the problem was him. And just sort of connecting the dots. You talked about Trey Hendrickson.
Oh, maybe Indy.
Maybe that's an exciting pair of edge rushers with DeForest Buckner inside as well. Damn.
Yeah, they've got some good guys up front. That defense has some work to do, and that team in general has some work to do. I just think about Trey.
But they have money because they're not beholden to the quarterback paying $60 million. No Anthony Richardson, whether he's a hit or a miss, it's a sub $15 million contract at this point, so you can afford to take those kinds of.
I just want to see Trey win, and I want to see Trey finish his career in a way that the career at large is appreciated properly. Because I really think he's played well enough to be called one of the best rushers of our little generation. And by generation, I mean, his career.
No doubt. And if 2 games in the Bengals schedule this year go differently based on things that happened on offense, he would have won Defensive Player of the Year in a runaway.
Yeah, they just weren't going to give it to, and we don't know the end of the day. We don't know yet, right? Because these awards come out NFL honors.
Yeah. The odds say he's not going to win.
Odds say he's not going to win, but it's not something I'm betting on. Anyways, I'm hoping you'll enjoy Ryan. But again, just a heads up, we're not going to be crunching tape here. So if you're not into that, don't say I didn't tell you so. Enjoy the time with Rye, and we'll be back on Monday. Here's Ryen Russillo. Thanks to BetMGM and all you football fans. I want you to picture something. You bet your favorite touchdown. You bet your favorite player has first touchdown score, but he throws a block to send a teammate into the end zone, and you lost your bet, right?
Wrong.
With BetMGM second chance promotion, you'll get your stake back if your first touchdown scorer scores second. Bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. If you're right, you win. If your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. Keep that in mind next time you throw in a first touchdown score bet with BetMGM. Happy hunting. You know, my family and I, we like to go out west and travel in the summer sometimes, and we've gone to Montana for long stretches. And when we go out there, you know, it can be expensive to travel. You got 3 kids, you're lugging them across the country, the plane tickets add up. When you're gone, you know, you can be double dipping. You can be enjoying your vacation and making money at home. Passive income, my favorite kind of income. Your house might be worth more than you think it is with Airbnb. Find out more at airbnb.com/host. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Good to see you.
Yeah. The weirdest show of the year when there's like suddenly no football.
Yeah, I'll tell you though, not doing it 5 days a week anymore. Now it's been years. You know, it's been more years than you'd realize. It's been over 7 years since I did the everyday thing, and so when I have podcast episodes where I go to bed, I'm like, what am I going to start with tomorrow? Or I wake up, I'm like, I don't know that I have it. I never can let myself get that upset about it, considering I don't even know how I did it.
I couldn't imagine, but having done live twice a week this year, I kind of feel like live, it lowers the expectation. You know, if that makes sense. Not that we heavily edit our recorded podcasts, but it kind of feels like, you know, when there's a bunch of people watching, you just let it rip. And I don't know if you ever felt that way, like, or it's like, hey, things are going to come up every morning and we can kind of riff on them, and nobody expects you to be like detailed on breaking news. But now I know how you prepare. Like, you're diving into a topic, like you're writing a dissertation on it.
Yeah, some are better than others, but I just wanted, at least for the pod, to try to provide it like in a way that like your best episode of the week for radio is kind of what I wanted to do. But then when I do, like, say the 10, I usually wish they were 10 and they end up being 15. I'm still I need to get better at that, but I'll do a good one, right? Like, I thought I had a good one the other day, and then I just go, I couldn't do 4 of these in a 3-hour show, right? And that's 12 segments. So then I think about Cowherd and I think about how he does his show, but good luck.
You're also older. No offense. I'm starting to feel like, you know, this shit is not as easy as it was even 5 years ago for me. You know? And I think part of that is just being older.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that it's just age and the way age can slow you down. I think when you're younger, you're so determined to prove yourself. And when you're fighting through it, I think there's also, you know, for a lot of people and a lot of businesses, you can get to that coasting stage. But the problem is like, if you're doing something for public consumption, it's hard to coast. Like, I can't just hide in the cubicle.
No.
Put the phone on voicemail.
I know. I just, ow, fuck me. Did I just cut myself in the middle of a podcast?
Sounds like it.
God, dog, these fucking Mountain Valley water tops.
Oh yeah. Good water though.
Great water, but it's like it's like walking through the fucking Vietnamese jungle to get the water. There's like traps and shit. God damn, look at that.
Oh, that's a good one. And it's at the end of the thumb.
Solid cut.
Yeah, you're gonna be feeling that for a week.
I know, and it's on like my my joystick thumb.
Yeah, I could tell.
Golly, I'm gonna have to put a fucking Band-Aid on.
You may have to get one of those weird controllers from Electronics Boutique where you just have like it attached to the mid digit, and then you have to learn how to move the joystick like off of the meat of the thumb.
I never had one of those. I think this is going to affect the podcast. I think it's going to affect everything. I'm playing hurt here.
Are you going to cancel New Orleans?
I don't know, bro. I'm supposed to play that guy Sketch in Madden. You know Sketch?
What's up? Hey, brother. Hey, brother.
You know Sketch.
I'm aware.
You're still online.
I'm aware.
Yeah. Well, how am I going to do it with a fucking injured joystick thumb? Gamblers need this information.
Is he that good? Is he that good? Is that how like his claim to fame?
He's that good. I watched him play Sauce Gardner. Here's the deal with Madden. Let me just say this. You're an NBA guy. I love LeBron. But there is no way in hell he's a top 100 player in the world, dude. There's no way in hell. He's either just blatantly full of it on this one, or he has a network of dudes that play for him, because you know how much you have to play to be in the top 100, to be good enough to be in the top 100, to play enough to be in the top 100. The way it is now is Madden rankings reset every month. So, when is he playing this much?
That would be, imagine if you were like a mid-tier quarterback and then going, I'm top 100 in the world on Madden. I mean, Monday press conferences, they'd just be like, what are you doing?
We've seen that with Call of Duty, Ryan.
Right, with Kingsbury, my guy.
I'm bleeding like a stuck pig. Go ahead, Ryan.
For all the shit LeBron takes, some justified, some is just about being a public figure for over 2 decades. I always try to think of could you ever actually be that normal when people started paying attention to you when you're 13, 14 years old, the headlines, and then following through on every single promise you have about a guy. But look, there's definitely some fair criticisms in there. And when is that self-proclaimed, or is that like a listing, a posting, and it shows that he's top 100? Because that's insane.
Matt, can you dial in here? Producer Matt, massive NBA fan. You've heard the quote. I don't want to misquote LeBron. He's directly claimed to be in the top 100.
Yeah, his teammates say that he is scouting Madden film on the bus on drives to games and stuff like that.
He's watching YouTube?
Practice. Yeah, he's watching clips of Madden in order to get better. And he is arguably the smartest basketball player of all time. So I think it's possible.
Sure, I think he's got the capability. It's just more of a time management thing that I'm like.
Yeah, why isn't he watching Grizzlies tape?
Right, yeah, a little more Grizz tape.
Because he's afraid of Jay Huff.
Yeah, Jay Huff. How about that guy? Not afraid. Not afraid. That guy gets shots as soon as it's in his hands, wet.
He's used to coming off the bench too. He came off the bench for UVA's national title team.
I know. They don't know what to do with him. He's so damn tall. Thank you, Matt. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't slandering LeBron. So, yeah, joystick thumb all jacked up. Let's get into this thing. Ryan, it's Super Bowl week. What's your earliest Super Bowl memory as a fan? What's your, when I think about the Super Bowl, I think about, starting to be acutely aware of the game script and the flow of the game, not just, hey, it's on TV, around Super Bowl 30, which was the Neil O'Donnell Pittsburgh Steelers in the desert, beautiful logo against the Dallas Cowboys.
That was a fun one. I was in college for that. I remember the lead up to it, Cordell Slash, and then Dion was like, if they're going to let Cordell do this, then I want to throw, I want to do all these different things. Media Week was a big deal. I have to go back for me. It would probably be, I think the first one that I was really aware of was San Francisco, Cincinnati in '82. So that's Super Bowl 16. And this is where the age gap would kick in. That was the first part of the Niners thing that was so much fun. I think everybody kind of just enjoyed them if you were neutral about it. Yeah. Washington, Miami, I don't remember as much. The Raiders, Washington one was a blowout.
Blowout.
Your dad was in that one, right?
Yeah, it was a Howie Long one.
Yeah. Miami loses another one. I just remember that San Francisco Cincinnati one is the first one that was just on my radar. 7 was when I first started paying attention to sports and having some thoughts or caring about the outcome. But there's really nothing replacing Super Bowl 20, because I was in New England and yet every kid was in love with the Fridge and Walter Payton and that Bears team. That Bears team for that year was the coolest thing in sports if you were a kid. So they had all sorts of, if they had run for president that year, they would have won with 70% of the popular vote.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the Patriots fans now, you're saying were Bears fans? There were a lot of kids that were Bears fans?
Yeah, but I was in Connecticut then. So I'm not, it wasn't I was down the street from the baseball tavern.
Do you think that's what happened to you threw me an oop. It's just a joke. Let me just say this. I support my friend.
I don't care.
Where he's from.
I don't.
It's just a funny thing that everybody's freaking out about it.
You know what upsets me is that I was down the street from him. I was down the street. I was living on Com Ave, and we could have been buddies back then. I could have been buying him beers.
Bro,
you know?
I feel bad for my guy because there's no shame in being from somewhere. Unless it's Boston. Anyways.
Look, Captain, like Painters, Caps, Celtics, Scott Wedman, they weren't rooting for the Bears. I'm just telling you, like, Connecticut had a weird deal in itself. And if you were of a certain age, and I didn't really care about the Patriots in the beginning, I thought the Niners were cool. Like, I was just a kid. The Bears were the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the Bears never. That's the coolest thing about a team like that, I guess. When you look at it as like Kansas City right now, they've been too good for too long. People hate them. You know, like the Bears, they had that moment, and then it's this thing. You know, it's something cool about that. You know, Bears fans would probably tell you they take the three-peat. But
yeah, I think I'd rather have. But for one single season, and what they were defensively. Like, I know what the stats are, and, you know, they lose that Miami game. So it's almost like they're not as like, I'd rather that team to me is way better than the undefeated Dolphins team. But, you know, because of the counting stuff that I think we become really stupid about, we're just not allowed to say that kind of stuff. But for one single year, you know, granted, I was impressionable. I was younger.
I think Larry Zonka, if he heard that, could and would whoop your ass.
I think he would after that interview and after your scattering report on Zonka, where I think
love Zonka,
he fell in love with the guy.
I really want to go to Alaska. I want to land in a bush plane and, like, you know, with a Sixer, and there's a fire already going, and the set's like right there, and me and Zonk just sit down.
Why haven't you done that? I almost went to Yellowknife because of you, but
did you think about it?
100%. So I went to British Columbia last summer, and it was one of those deals where I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to snooze a vacation, and I'm not going to sit here and have a diary and then tape these episodes, because that actually was making some of the other vacations not super relaxing, even though I enjoyed doing it.
Really, just on vacation.
Right. So I went to Vancouver, was over that pretty quickly, made it up to Squamish, where all those rock climbers hang out. Remember that Netflix series where the dude was just like out of control? Like, nobody really knew who he was. He was like sleeping in a hallway at one point. And
does this guy, no spoilers, he die at the end?
Yeah.
That's it. I know the one.
The Alpinist?
The Alpinist. Incredible.
Right. Seems super likable, very down to earth, minimalist, and just had another level to him that other people didn't quite understand. And then I think he got lost in like a snowstorm, which was sort of the oddity of the end of his story, which is really sad. But anyway, so I went up to Squamish. I checked out that little neighborhood, and then I worked my way north to Whistler, and then I went north of Whistler, and then I started thinking like, okay, can I get a flight to Yellowknife? Because I couldn't drive there because that was too much. And then I was going to take a picture of me in front of like, welcome to Yellowknife, giving Chris the finger. And then I was like, for this picture, even though it'll be all-time stuff, but it's not really a prank, because I think the text Chris sent me was, go to Yellowknife, pussy. And
you won't.
I was like, you know what?
I'm in Canada. No, you're not.
I was like, I'm going to. So then I started looking, and I was like, okay, no problem. Like, I can drive back to Vancouver quick enough. Like, can I figure out a way? But then the flight's in and out of Yellowknife. And it's like, okay, but then once you get there, you're there. And then what are you going to do? And I figured, look, I'll just fish, because I was fishing in Whistler.
You're fucked.
Yeah, I would have liked it. I would have been fine.
Yeah, could you last in the Northern Territories? How long you last in, like, up there with the polar bears and the, you know, the whole thing?
Do I have a house?
Yeah, you got a single family home. It's a little bit overkill, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be fine. I don't want to do that right now. Not with the stuff. I know, like, you kind of dream about it, because like I was watching Bill Burr the other day, right? I was watching Bill Burr, and he was going in and out of doing stand-up. Where he would just start talking. And he was giving this story about how, like, his wife was yelling at him, and then he just played out the entire inner dialogue where he like, and then I go for a walk, and I'm like, okay, so if I get a 1-bedroom apartment, I can probably still So he's like going through all these mechanisms. And then, of course, I'm sitting there by myself going like, maybe I don't have it so bad. Look at me. Look at me.
No, yeah,
out.
you're fine. And it's not always the wife, but I have thought about faking my own death before.
Well, you just gave it away now. No one will ever believe it.
Well, I wouldn't be in Yellowknife. There's not enough vitamin D up there. You know what I mean?
I'd miss
depression.
I'd miss the freedom that I have with the normal climate and going down to the beach. And like if I had a boat up there, I think that's a short boat season, you know, and then you get to store it.
Yeah.
Stuff. There's a lot of price, a lot of costs that I was already running through my head having a boat up there. Skiff.
Well, it feels like this week it's harder to get to New Orleans than Yellowknife, huh?
Dude, I'll tell you, today's the first day where I was like, why am I going again?
Hey, what day do you get down, by the way?
Well, I have a flight booked Tuesday, and then I usually always get out of there early, so I'm going to leave Saturday.
I'm going to leave Saturday too, man.
Yeah, Saturday's the vet move.
So what day are we going to get together?
Usually it's that Friday, right?
I think Friday sounds like a pretty good night.
See, that's the thing.
Wednesday too. Why not Wednesday? You know?
Because I have the NBA trade deadline. The NBA trade deadline has destroyed the Super Bowl week for me.
Because you let it. Who's getting traded, Ryan? Jimmy Butler?
Well, hopefully not just Bogdan Bogdanovic. Remember that? That was the headliner last year to the Knicks, your Knicks.
Mm-hmm. My Knicks.
Not even part of the team.
That's a loose connotation right now, me and the Knicks. Like, it's just...
Why? What happened? You were really into it a little while ago.
I was, but, you know, ever since I started working in football, there's just no more space for another sport, which is actually why I respect the fuck out of you going to the Super Bowl at all and giving some of your energy to football.
I want to see everybody, you know. You take it for granted when you're younger that you're going to be hanging out with these friends, and then, you know, you kind of get past whatever that line is where it's like, okay, we've probably done enough stuff at this point. Like, we're probably going to be friends, whether it's you or I or other people. And I think about like that, those 2 nights or whatever, because it's not like it's some 5-night party and being like, hey, do you have an extra +1 to FHM? I'm like, oh, let me see. I'll email them again. Because that's what it was like when you're younger and you're just hoping to go to a million different things. But, you know, you get older, you can't take this stuff for granted that, you know, maybe this is the only time of the year that we even see each other. So, and there's just a ton of people that I want to see, ESPN people that I've never seen before. But this hotel situation with the New Orleans is so bad right now that today was the first moment that it crept into my head that I was like, or I could just not go.
Right.
So we'll see.
No, I mean, it's crossed my mind, but you make a good point. And I kind of was wondering, what age do you think we all stop getting hammered and having a good time?
I hope it never goes away, to be honest with you, because, I mean, really, within the parameters of it being a celebration of seeing people as opposed to your daily routine. But I was at Pinehurst, right? And some of us are south of 50, some of us are north of 50. And it was 16 guys from college. And we rented out villas and we played golf for 3 or 4 straight days. And we had early tee times, and we were laughing because we were thinking about some of these golf trips from like decades ago, where there was a group of us that would be like, stop it with the 7:30 tee times. Stop doing that to us. Like, because there was like a pocket of 2 or 3 guys that were hardcore golf guys, right?
Dude, real quick.
Yeah.
I went on a golf trip last year that I didn't know was a golf trip till I fucking got there.
You're not a core golf guy.
No, and these guys were in core golf mode. Continue.
So I would say half the crew was like, it is on from the jump. Like, you wondered what kind of plane situation they had coming into this, because you're like, all right, you are already peak you, and the sun isn't even down yet. And they tried to like do the housing based on like who was going to be the most rambunctious versus the guys that like were going to try to take the golf a little bit more seriously. I did work out one day when I was there. I was ridiculed nonstop for doing it.
You just don't feel right.
I was like, look, if I go 3-4 straight days without doing something, pushing a little iron, then I'm just not me. So I suck it. Anyway, maybe you'll have 4 abs one day, Chris. Not you.
Do you have 4 abs right now?
Yeah, right now I do. Yeah, I got 4. But I got to like
come and go.
Yeah, I got to be a little dehydrated and
yeah,
maybe,
I just ate dinner. I don't think I have any right now.
So to the point of like, when does it stop, right? So some of the guys like this is their once a year, and we haven't been doing this trip very often. So it's been years since we've even done it. So for some dudes, it's like, all right, tarps off, like we're going for it. And we were playing golf like the next day. Some guys were hurt and some guys weren't. And we were kind of laughing about it. And it's like, the funniest thing is that when you're younger, like you rage in college and then you go like, all right, it's over now. And it's like, no. Now you're in the city. You get access to a little bit more money. And now it's like a whole nother, like you were in AAA. You thought you were in the majors, but now you're in the majors, especially if you're like in one of the major cities. And now it's like on in a completely different way. And then the pain starts to set in those late 20s or whatever and all that kind of stuff. And then one of these dudes was in finance and he was just like, you know what I learned? He goes, we went on this trip. We had these clients. He's like, I think it was, this big thing. And he's like, I was dreading it. My wife was like, how bad are you going to feel Sunday when you get back? He's like, I'm already depressed. I'm pre-depressed about how bad Sunday night's going to be, but I have to do this whole thing. And he's like, the lead guy on the whole thing was like in his 60s. And he turned to him and he's like, this is the first night they're out. And he's not even having a good time because he already has anxiety about how bad he's going to feel after having to like tear it up with these clients for 3 straight nights. And he just turned to him. He goes, when does it stop, man? And the guy in the 60s goes, never stops. Never stops.
And to hear that, it's good news.
You hope you have the option for it, right?
I do think there is a point where you kind of hit a binge drinking plateau in your life.
Totally.
And you say, hey, like 3 nights, like I'm going to be in New Orleans for like 3 nights.
Yeah.
That's going to be enough, right? When I was younger, maybe I could have gone 4. I was like El Cid. Just prop me up.
You're better with it though. Like I can do the one late one. And we were even talking about this. Like we had a really big night in Vegas. And then the second night, everybody tried to reenact it. And I was like, I'll stay out. But like last night was the night. I don't have 2 in a row in me. And I'm kind of glad I don't. I'm kind of glad I don't have it.
Well, the nice thing is eventually you discover things like marijuana and mushrooms. Now you never did that. So it's pretty amazing to me that you still just like you're just it's Coors Lights and shots of brown liquor.
I don't know, but there's many shots of brown liquor. Usually that means
get ready this week.
That means something went wrong.
Get ready this week.
The big thing is if you can waterboard yourself a bit before you go to bed, it's an absolute game changer.
Yeah, no, liquid IV, all that stuff. What's your favorite Super Bowl memory? Like going to the Super Bowl? Do you remember meeting a fucking celebrity or something? Because one time when I was young, it was maybe my second Super Bowl. It might have been the one where I met you and Scott and Steve.
Miami?
It was a Florida one.
Yeah, that was the Peyton Manning Saints one. That's one of the best weeks I've ever had because we were there 9 days. Van Pelt and I are set up on the beach. ESPN was like really doing it big. And it was one of the few trips I've ever gone on that was work related where I could have stayed in Miami for a few more days. Like I still think Miami at that time was like whatever Miami is, like the full level of Miami, that was fine. And also, it's a bit like when the older guy says he doesn't like Vegas anymore. It's like Vegas doesn't like you anymore. Okay?
Right. No, that just changed for you. It's still the same place. In fact, it's probably better.
I like that Miami one a lot because we had a great setup. We had the convenient hotel. I was dating somebody that I got along with really well. So like the whole thing was great. And like, we just had a bunch of different nights where everything worked out, even though the ESPN party was a disaster. Like that was one of the all-time disasters trying to get into that thing. And then like you knew when Chris Berman was having a hard time getting in, it was like, okay, this is problematic, but we did get in. That's when we met that night. I remember though, I had to go home early because my girlfriend was like, I want to leave and I don't want to stay out until 4. And then you and Van Pelt left. And I was like, really like, I'd rather go do that. And I was also only like 33 or 34.
But that's the one. I mean, yeah, this is like, I met Lil Wayne. Like
you never know.
Like, you just never know who you see down there. Like Lil Wayne was at a party just pulling guys in and interviewing them for like 2 minutes at a time. And that, somebody grabs me and is like, and this is like Carter.
The Carter?
4? No, this is like Carter 4. Like or Carter 3, the one with like Mrs. Officer.
Yeah,
that's 3. So Carter 1 and Carter 2, like 2 of the best albums ever, and Carter 3 some people think is even better. I digress. But this is like when Wayne was like the man. He had that big mixtape run when I was in college. And to get pulled out of a party, like fresh out of college, and be like, hey, Little Wayne wants to interview you. Yeah, he didn't know who the fuck I was, but they were just, they were grabbing people to go in there and do some type of content. This is in the dawn of content, really, when you think about it. I was like, man, this Super Bowl stuff's different, bro.
BC,
and then like full circle last year or a couple years ago when we were in Arizona, fucking hung out with K-Fed for a solid 2 hours. Remember that?
I do remember that. You were pumped because you were like, I met Kevin Federline, and we were like, what's he? Because that's the thing is, you just don't. What it is that week is just, it's Mardi Gras for celebrities.
I guess it is. I guess that's what it is.
They just don't have to work in the morning, so
and
it's a little easier
for
them.
I'm not like a. There's a few people I go up to, and like now at this stage of my life, when I was a player, I tried not to be too like, hey, I'm this, hey, nice to meet you. Now I'm old enough where I'm like, fuck it, I can be a fan. Like, I'll stop somebody for a picture, depending on who it is. I think there's probably some sort of a theory. Do you have like a theory on what kind of celebrity, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? One time I stopped him for a picture and it was a bad idea.
I can see that. Yeah.
It wasn't a great idea. But as some people, like if I saw Frank Thomas, I'm beelining.
Yeah, but does he know who you are?
Who, Kareem?
Yeah.
Well,
did you
at
say
first he didn't, and it wasn't great. But then when he knew who I was, he was really cool. Like he actually knew my dad. They played around the same time in LA. I met Gary Sheffield. I was standing in a group of people that called me Kyle, and he was like, "That's Chris." I was like, "That's awesome." It's just the fucking it's the people watching Super Bowl. It is the Super Bowl, but it's the people watching Super Bowl. You never know who you're going to see.
Yeah, I've started to get to a point where like I've just stopped saying hello unless I have like the ultimate in of something. Because
come on, I've seen you say hello once or twice.
Yeah, but if do you think I like run over to dudes? You ever see me run over to take a picture?
No, but if a dude like, remember, all right, we were in Louisiana. I didn't want to come up to Bill Wennington. You were like, let's do it.
Yeah, but that was it was Bill Wennington, man.
Okay.
I mean, Bill Wennington's at my friend's bar and he's in the same little private thing that we're all in.
That's what I mean. Even if we're in a private thing, like I get nervous sometimes to just be like, like, hey, I'm yada, yada, yada.
And then we invited Bill Wennington and his son and all of their bachelor party to our friend's other tailgate. Then got them beers and was like, yeah, you guys can post up here and help yourselves with whatever you need. So we did them a massive solid and they were totally appreciative of it. But I think the rarity that Bill Wennington wasn't just with MJ, as a Johnny's fan, like I was like, I'll just do it because it's the St. John's thing more than it is the Jordan thing. And you wanted to meet him. So I did want
to meet him. You did me a solid. You set a pick for me or something. And I think Bill Wennington, the important part is I
was the clear out route.
Yes. And on some of these celebrities, they're on whichever axes it is. That's like friendly axes. There's like friendly axes and fame axes. He's like in the perfect spot because if you're a sports fan, you love Bill Wennington. Bill probably doesn't get recognized by everyone. There's probably a lot of people that are like, who's that tall guy? If you know who he is and you're our age, it's a big fucking deal. And he probably loves it. And he was super cool. And there's some guys who are just so fucking tired of it, I would never come up to him.
I think I'm just learning, like, most of them don't go that well unless you have some kind of history or something very specific where it'll work. Like I ended up being in the post Shane Gillis, Bill Burr thing, right? There's like 100 people in this private thing and it's up to the comedians because I think of the whole deal. And it was raising money for all the fire stuff that's happened out here in LA. And you and I hung out with Shane and it was great. He's exactly what you'd expect. I mean, he's a huge Eagles guy, so he's going to love you. And went up and said hello, was like, hey, Chris and I are going down to New Orleans. And like, that was kind of it. And then I ran into somebody else that was sort of famous who I'd actually talked to before. And I was there like as a mutual thing. And they were like, you should go say hi. And I was like, I don't know. Like, especially for those comedians where it's like 2 or 3 comedians and there's 100 people that just watch the show. So they all want their moment with them, especially in Los Angeles. And so I knew, I was like, all right, yeah, fine. And it went bad to the point where the guy basically was like, I'm going to go talk to somebody else.
Coming up to Shane or coming up to a different comedian?
No, I didn't. That with Shane, it was fine. But
yeah,
there was,
dude, I thought we were in. Hey, and
Shane's to the point where he's so famous. Like, I didn't even want to take up time. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, hey, I just want to say hi. Fucking great.
But was Bill Burr there?
Bill Burr was there. There was a couple other people that were there.
Did you come up to Bill Burr? You didn't say shit to Bill Burr. I would never come up to Bill Burr, even though he's my fucking coworker, BetMGM.
That's right. You love Bill Burr. We've already talked about Bill Burr. Yeah.
He's this generation's George Carlin. Even though I think everybody wants George Carlin to be somebody that they're not.
What does that mean?
That means, a bunch of idiots on. I don't want to get into it. A bunch of people, Ryan, think that George Carlin. It's kind of like the Pat Tillman thing. Everybody's fighting over what Pat Tillman would think.
That seems like that's a good use of time.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, come on. But George Carlin, I do think there's a Bill Burr parallel there.
Yeah, because Carlin, his approach was this observational thing. Not that that's that rare in comedy, but like Bill Burr is so good at, I can't believe, like, he just explained the thing that I've thought, but I wasn't able to figure out how to explain it.
Right on the nose.
And especially when you do this and you talk for a living, as you're laughing, you're kind of thinking, I wish I had figured out a way to have said what he just said. Although he's going to get away with way more than you would as a sports podcaster. But that's where it's not like, oh, this is this joke no one's ever thought of, or the path of this joke. And then the way he brings it back around at the end, like, oh, that's so brilliant. It's more of, he has things that feel like everybody should have been able to say what he did, but they just can't do it the way he can.
And it's not a direct player comp. I'm not saying like the delivery's the same or anything. I'm just saying they're both really fucking smart and they kind of cut to the heart of it, which is increasingly, I think the comedy that I want to hear is like, it's more of an extended monologue. Shane Gillis, I laugh my ass off at him. He's a way different kind of guy. He's just as bright as Bill and those guys. Like,
I think Shane's a genius. Actually,
and he downplays his fucking intellect.
No, I think he's like a genius, dude. At least for this stuff, because what he'll do is he layers some of this stuff, and then he kind of plays with you, like in which direction he's going to go, and then he pulls you back, and then it's the point where he's kind of getting away with everything. Where I don't know that anybody feels bad with some of the stuff that he's doing.
You never know who he's going to dunk on at the end of the deal. But
yeah.
In the process, it ends up being everybody. No, anyways, I just wanted to know if you went up to Bill Burr, but you didn't have the balls. So,
you know what was a bad one?
What?
Was a bad, because I run into a lot of people here in Manhattan Beach, and
let's just keep talking about bad celebrity encounters.
No, because I'm done. Like, I'm not going to say hello to anybody anymore, because it just, like, I'm to a point where nobody wants to talk to anybody. So don't, even if you have like kind of an in, because there's been a few people that I've interviewed or I've said before, and I would be like, oh, hey, and I just go, none of these are ever good. So I'm done with it.
Depends on where you are, dude. Like,
nah, they're all bad. They're all bad, and I'm done. I've stopped doing any of them. And it's drive-bys for me too. It's not like I think I'm going to partner with this guy or get a house together in Aspen. But like when I did the Steven Jackson one and asked him for a picture only because of me being boys with you and how much you live Steven Jackson, that one didn't go great.
Oh, it didn't go great?
In the beginning?
Give me the synopsis.
Well, when you're there's no like, I wonder if that's Steven Jackson. You're like, yeah, that's Steven Jackson.
Yeah.
And because of you, and the only reason I would have done it, I was like, hey man, and I'd interviewed him a couple of times. Not that he's ever going to remember any of that stuff, because dude played a long time. He's 7 minutes on the phone with me and Van Pelt. Like, I remember that. It was a Tuesday. So we were like kind of walking towards each other, and I was like, hey, like, my name's Ryan. I used to work, and he's, how many times has that happened to him in his life? Thousands. So the immediate thing goes up of like, Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to walk through town. I think I think somebody was with them where, they immediately look at you like, oh Christ, here we go again.
Did you see Todd Gurley get run down on the side of the street by one of these like content guys that basically like makes Instagram reels and asks random people who look successful what they do for a living, or like, what their advice would be to a younger generation? One of those guys, Todd Gurley.
I'm going to watch it as soon as we're done, because that one night where there was more than 3 of us, but the night that you brought me out and met up with Todd Gurley, not that Gurley and I have not kept in touch since that night, but I knew how much you loved him.
I love Todd Gurley, dude.
Yeah, I know. You're just glowing right now, even thinking about him. And the brief, we talked a little bit for like a few minutes. He was so like reserved, but kind of funny in his understated way. So I can't go ahead, tell the story.
No, I mean, there is no story. He just the guy ran him down and was like, what kind of advice are you giving?
Did he take it seriously?
Well, to give the interview at all, is giving it a college try. I mean, people would say, hey, Todd was mailing it in, but I thought he tried to be insightful, but get where he was going. I thought that was a good look for him.
Have any advice for me? You have any advice for me? I moved from Egypt to become successful out here.
Oh, what part of Egypt?
Cairo, Egypt.
I was in Cairo.
Cairo, that's my city. What do you think about the Rams going from Louisiana to LA?
St. Louis to LA.
Okay. What do you think about Louisiana?
What do you think about the Rams going from St. Louis to LA?
Okay, what do you think about the Rams? Okay, let me ask a different question. Yes, how do you feel about being a 3-time Pro Bowler?
That's cool. Definitely humbling and exciting.
Advice for me to become successful out here?
I mean, success is different to everyone, right? Just staying consistent, staying the course, staying true to yourself. I think that's always going to be the key. But then also being realistic as well. You can be whatever you want to be in this world, man.
The worst kind of content today is on Instagram. It's the best, worst content. It's all day.
Are you telling me Jerry Rice didn't get you ready for the weekend?
That Jerry Rice Instagram, bro. I love older dudes posting. It's the funniest shit in the world. It's like, and I'm starting to notice that it's going to happen to me at some point. I feel like I'm already left behind on Twitter. Like Instagram is a safer space for me. I'm going to be there soon. Where I'm just I'm like the older guy on Instagram, but the Jerry Rice post is incredible. It's incredible.
I think I'll be so scared of that I know I won't do it, but I love that Jerry Rice did it. But there's things that I do where I'll talk to somebody at the checkout thing a little bit longer than I should. And I'll go, what the hell was that?
What the fuck are you doing, dude?
Yeah. You were earnestly trying to engage in some dialogue there with the person checking you out, or you thought you had something funny. I went to Target the other day to buy some windshield wiper fluid. And as you know, University of Vermont, proud alum, won a national championship in soccer. And there was a girl, walking through with a push cart. She had a UVM sweatshirt on right here in Manhattan Beach, my little backyard.
Small world.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you engage in conversation?
So I was walking by with a couple gallons of washer fluid, because I seem to go through that stuff quick. And I just said, hey, Vermont. All right. You would have thought I asked her for a nude. She just looked at me, and then I'm in that age.
I am not hitting on you.
Yeah.
I want to have a picture of my wife and kids. I just noticed your sweatshirt. I end up in these situations too, where I just talk to random people because you think you have something in common.
You're friendly though. I'm just kind of hitting some of these windows of age where I'm like, oh, this is what my dad did, when it's hey, anything else, unless you're giving it away,
Yeah.
And then you're a kid being like, God, Dad, you said that 7 times in a row.
Oh, the repeats. Yeah. I start catching myself tell the same story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here I go.
Now people blame the boomers for all the wars and real estate. They're going to be blaming us for bad content or bad content forwards.
They're going to be blaming us when all you can find on the internet exclusively is a guy outside a nightclub being like, what do you look for in a guy? Is 6 inches too small? When that's the only content that you can access on the internet, it's going to be post-apocalyptic, and they're going to blame us. But it wasn't my generation. It's the one right below it. My generation
at least
gave birth to, to like blogs and shit.
Yeah. At least that is an attempt at something, though. And I think
the thing outside the nightclub.
Yeah, that's an attempt at something. What I can't stand, the people I despise the most, and it's more on Twitter, is the person that thinks they're actually offering up any kind of service by just posting a popular video that's newsworthy from 30 minutes before. And then just being like new. And then they build this massive audience because people are lazy and they're just like, oh, I'll just keep following this person. I don't blame the follower part of it, but that is the least impressive thing that we have in content today, where you just offer nothing, and yet you're deemed some kind of success because and the thing is, like, you could say, hey, anybody could do this, and then they'd be like, well, why don't you? I'd be embarrassed
because it's below me to be like an aggregator to that degree.
It's so unimpressive. There was something that was happening the other day. I don't know if you and I were talking about this, but this is like this. We're getting a little deep here, so I don't even know if this is any good or not. No. But like when a big thing happened when I was a kid, it was a big thing for a long time because we didn't have the next thing to replace it.
Yeah,
we just didn't consume anything fast enough. And now we have stuff that happens. Like there'll be something that'll happen potentially with an alien or another planet or whatever. And then 12 hours later, nobody remembers. I'm like, dude, I think if there's another planet nearby, that would have been a bigger deal when I was younger. And now
pause for a second. Everybody would be outside in their front yard.
Yeah.
They'd already be there playing fucking kickball or something. And then look up and see the planet.
Yeah. I think we move too fast, and we have access to too much stuff.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Well, let's, in the spirit of moving this thing along.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you a couple football questions. Number one, what's your read on the game?
I've picked against Mahomes 4 times, I think, in the 20 playoff games. And so, the only time I don't think it's worked out. No, I'm 1-3. I picked
Cincy?
Brady in the offsides game.
2018, D Ford.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the Chiefs had less penalties than the Patriots at that point, the refs were trying to get the Patriots to win. So that's kind of surprising. I just did a whole deep dive on this because I've been the center of all the officiating, not the center, but one of the punching bags of conspiracy theorists and Chiefs fans alike over the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think that they would want Kansas City in there all the time. It's kind of like the NBA lottery stuff. And it's like, did you really think that the NBA would want Tim Duncan and Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio?
Yes, dude. Oh, yeah, let's put them in this market.
Right. So that's not really anything I'm thinking about. I think this Eagles team is absolutely loaded. And I know that just looking at Hurts' numbers isn't the best way to quantify kind of what he does for this team. And he was coming off all that time missed with a concussion protocol, bad weather, then the knee injury. And so, he has a really impressive game against Washington. Washington wasn't even close to being in the same tier as those other 3 teams, as far as I'm concerned. I think it was just like Jaden putting together some really good stretches against a Tampa team that's more offensively advanced than they are defensively. Detroit's injuries and being a complete mess and giving away the possession of the Jameson Williams interception. So Jaden was a story more than it was his complete team. So you'd expect the Eagles to light them up. But whether it's the offensive line, the skill guys, and what Howie Roseman's done, dude, reinventing that defense and the corners. And like, I remember you talking about Quinyon this summer being like, dude, I'm hearing he's a stud.
Yeah.
I was like, how could you have vets like already signing off like as a rookie corner? And they were. And you guys were all right about it, by the way.
2 years ago, they told me Jalen Carter was the best player on the field in camp. And he was a rookie. So, we talked about this recently where you look at the first three rounds of the draft over the last 5 years. They've just done a great job of retooling. I think in football, it's so impressive. There's a few organizations that are really organizations. Like they have plans, they have identities. I think the rest of them are businesses, and some of them are bad businesses. But the Eagles are now in that echelon, I think, of teams that have programs. And, to get back 3 different times with 3 different teams and 2 different quarterbacks over that span, multiple different coordinators, different head coaches, that tells me that they're cooking when it comes to personnel and taking big risks and making big decisions. Think about it. that took a lot of balls to do the Jalen Hurts thing in the first place. It took a lot of balls to hire Vic Fangio. It took a lot of balls not to fire Nick Sirianni last year or talk about it. Like, I mean, people were ready when you're a coach that's not calling plays and you've gone through multiple iterations of coordinators and your quarterback's not playing better and the defense plays that way. And then you put Matty P in there who struggles. You'd have thought he might not be there, but I think ultimately going to that first Super Bowl saved him, and they're proved right because the guy, we're about to talk about press conferences in a second, he had the worst press conference ever, and, whatever it is, 4 or 5 years later, he's one of the winningest coaches in the NFL. Like, you got to give him some credit, and Howie Roseman and the personnel department have been awesome. Everybody they added this year, Ryan, is up for an award. Barkley, Bond, Fangio, Quignon, DeJean, like they're all in conversations for awards.
Yeah, my guy Nakobe, like from not being able to even get on the field to being a big part of what they do defensively too. And I know that there was a million other bodies all over the place. The Nolan Smith pickup, they've just been awesome at it, man. They've been incredible. Having said all those things, like unless this Chiefs team that is not turnover prone,
you're not going to touch the hot stove again, are you?
No, I'm not going to pick against Mahomes back-to-back weeks. I did it this past week.
I did it this past week too.
Yeah. And I don't want to pick favorites every single time. I mean, I guess I could pick them 20 times in a row and it would have worked out. I picked him in the Super Bowl against Brady in a rematch of guys, not teams, obviously, and then didn't realize that both the tackles were going to get destroyed. So as much as we're sitting here giving Philly all this love, which they totally deserve, I think Veach and this group reinventing themselves around Mahomes, trying to fix the offensive line. And then it ultimately becomes that Tooney's their best option at tackle. And that's just a small part of what I think is the more impressive thing is that they knew, hey, defensively, they're going to have to get younger. They're going to have to maybe take their lumps. But you also have somebody like Mahomes who can kind of play to your strengths and weaknesses. The quarterback situation is like solving the problems in front of you, but it's also kind of like solving your own roster problems. And nobody does that better than Mahomes. Nobody did that better than Brady. It's a reason why these guys keep winning every single year. So I don't have I'll watch all the film breakdown people and I'll see what they say. And maybe there'll be some kind of thing that, tells me it's going to go this way or that way. I think the film people told you that Baltimore just had a massive advantage with their front against Buffalo's D. And I think it played out that it could have headed in that direction, but Buffalo still pulled the game out. So certainly I'd give Philly a chance here. I'm just not picking against Mahomes back-to-back weeks. So that's it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the biggest thing and we've talked about this, but it's the health of the guys up front for the Eagles. Dickerson and Juergens kind of almost platooning at different points in that game. Dickerson with the knee, Juergens with the back. They both were, really kind of ambling. Is that the word, Ryan?
Yeah, it was crazy seeing. I mean, you know way more than I do about this, but like that's that offensive line pride thing of like,
so tough.
You need me to go in for you, and then it's like, well, now I'm more hurt than you are, and then they're almost like not arguing, but you get the point. Like what I was seeing on the sideline there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so hard because I posed the question in my head. I was like, if you could only have one of them this week, and I don't know, I don't have any indication that they're going to be dinged or not. Like backs can kind of cool off relatively quickly depending on what the treatment is. A knee, I don't really know what's going on with Landon's knee, but he was kind of really limping around. I think the 2 weeks really helps. But the hard thing is you don't get a lot of great practice time when you're on site. Like you do, but you don't. Things are crazy. Like you're working out at the University of Houston or at the University of Minnesota. You're bussing over. You don't have your locker room. Some coaches are afraid to put the pads on. You might not get a lot of contact. You're trying to keep people fresh. I mean, after all, it is like week 27. And so if those guys aren't getting reps this week, that worries me a little bit. And especially if Cam's down. And I'm not saying Landon isn't a damn good player. Landon, to me, is one of the best players on the offensive line. But the center of that group is so important. And when Juergens left the game last week, I don't know if you remember, but it was almost like immediately middle pressure and Dan Quinn, rightfully so, attacking the A's and saying, hey, make them sort these pressures. And, the week prior, I didn't think the interior of that offensive line had a great day relative to their standard in the pass game, sorting some of these things. So if you don't have that center, that's a big deal, especially against the Spags team with Chris Jones up front and the whole thing. I think the tush push is, after last week, going to be
back in play.
TV. No, I mean, think about Kansas City. I mean, now Buffalo's not quite as proficient at it, and I don't know why it's always like, hey, let's make him go left, like on 4th and inches, let's try to go over the left guard. I know Chris Jones is over there, but how did it work out? I think Kansas City has shown enough to make you think this could be not an automatic, when it comes to, and that's such a key play for them because it kind of allows them to call the game in the way that they want to call the game. You can be less aggressive on 3rd and 5, because if we fall forward for 9 feet, we're going to just do this shit.
Right.
And so that definitely matters. And I think that the thing also on the other side of the ball, Vic Fangio's rep is we're going to make you earn it, right? We're going to make you drive the field. Most teams can't go 10, 12 plays without making a mistake, quite frankly. And Mahomes has, to his credit and to Kansas City's credit and Andy Reid's credit, they have just – it's been a metamorphosis from the Tyreek Hill explosives days to – and you saw the growing pains last year with some less than perfect targets outside – death by 1,000 paper cuts. And they're so good at it. They're so good at it. And you think about being explosive. I mean, they can be explosive in 5-yard chunks. And I think Kelsey also is such a chess piece this week because of the defense that the Eagles play, and being a zone match team, you can kind of get the matchup you want on Kelsey out in the field. But I think it's going to be a total chess match. And, Spags is not somebody I like sitting across the board from, but the Eagles have a better roster. Like, that to me it's hard to argue against that. Head coach, quarterback, hey, we're not saying Jalen can't win it. He was this close last time. But on paper, the coach and the quarterback, you can check those boxes in Kansas City's column. Everybody else, not everybody else. Like last week, we went through it with the Commanders, me and Kelsey, a couple weeks ago, or somebody, I don't know, maybe I can't remember who it was. We were talking about it. How many Commanders players would you have drafted over Eagles players? And, position by position, the number is like, barely any at all. With Oren Burks on the field, maybe it's Frankie Louvu, that type of thing. Maybe if both defensive tackles are up, it's Deron Payne over Milton Williams or something like that. But there's just not a lot of players you would take from the Commanders team. And this week it's less Eagles, but it's probably 70-30, 60-40. This roster is really good. I could make an argument this roster is as good as almost any roster has been in the Super Bowl in the past 5-7 years.
Yeah, they're loaded. They're absolutely loaded, except it starts to feel like it's a Hurts versus Mahomes thing, which isn't always entirely fair. But
it's not.
Turned a corner. Does it even matter? Does it matter that he's not going to throw to the middle of the field? Is Spags going to be like, hey, this is what a break this is, as opposed to Josh Allen, where, we don't feel like you have to cover the entire field. But again, we're talking about a much better receiving core. And I think you trust Goddard more than you trust the two guys for Buffalo at the tight end position. I loved Kincaid in college, and I think he needs to be, and it's not just that 4th and 5 play. There was another throw a little bit earlier where he just probably needs to be a little bit tougher with the football. Of course, Philadelphia has a chance. And the fact that they, it's not spitting image because we're talking about different coordinators here on their side of it from the rematch. But I would like to think that there's enough people, there's so many people that were on this roster that played in that game, that the excitement of actually getting there is just not the same for them. It's not going to be the same for them because you're going up against another team where it's not even a factor. Like, this is expected. It's a business trip. They planned on being there when they won the one last year, right? In Vegas. So this is very normal for them. And I think that's a huge part of the Philly chance, because if it were, say, like Washington or Detroit or pick another team, or Minnesota, like, oh my God, I can't believe we got here, then there's a bit of a happy to be here versus the internal expectation of it only being a win for Chiefs.
That's right.
Chiefs players and the staff. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, because before we finish with a little bit of mail, the Cam Newton MVP conversation was very interesting to us earlier when we were texting.
Yeah.
Cam was given an either you're an MVP or a Super Bowl champion. And his answer was keep the MVP. Now, I didn't hear the comments. Did you hear the comments?
No, he was on First Take. He was asked if you give back the MVP for Super Bowl championship, would he do it? Newton answered, quote, no. And then he said, what's more important, impact or championship? Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Respectfully, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. I know that's not the popular pick. My take is I'm taking individual success because I did my job.
You know what? I respect him for being honest about that, because it's baked into the answer that if you say anything but Super Bowl, people are going to question you. I think he's not the only person who's going to answer a binary question like that between team success and like individual glory in that way. Look, 1998 Cove Creek Marlins, last place team in the league. And because of some woke set of league rules, every team got in the playoffs. Now, we reeled off 3 straight wins.
They wouldn't have that anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Now the big guy's back.
Yeah, exactly. Cove Creek now probably only 4 teams get in.
But that might have been signed off on.
Yeah, back in the day. And, we beat the Diamondbacks in the first round. They were like the little giants. They had this kid, Jeremy Crawford.
Yeah, JC.
I'm pretty sure was like a fucking grown-up at that point. He hit a ball so far. There was this bathtub in the woods that like everybody's like, why the fuck is
Why are there bathtubs in the woods?
I have no idea. But he hit the ball.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of bathtubs out there in the woods.
Yeah, I don't know.
What the fuck is that about?
I don't know. So, long story short, we end up winning the whole damn thing. Big Cinderella story.
Yeah.
Your boy won MVP too. So, it doesn't always break that way where you can win both, Cam. But as somebody who's won both at the same time, I would gladly give that MVP trophy back. And my whole thing is this: the hypothetical can really only be asked of a quarterback, right? Like, because think about it, if you're a position player, like, you're not going to be an MVP. So the question is, would you rather be like, I don't know. I guess the question is, would you rather be Nick Foles or Cam Newton? And I guess there are answers in between that. But like, Nick Foles has a fucking statue outside the stadium. There is something cool about that. Like, and I was a role player on that team. When you go back, bro, like, I'm eating cannolis out of Dom's locker 15 minutes before the game. The yellow jacket guys downstairs said, go wherever the fuck you want, bro. Like, you talk about like unlocking a code.
Well, it's like that for you in Foxborough too, though, right?
I wouldn't know. No, the weird thing about, just so I can explain that thing fully, it's like, that's me being humble about it. Like, I didn't do it. I did some good stuff for that team.
You're too humble about it, though. Like, you act like you're not supposed to be there. And I think what's really cool about the right organizations is that, and you and I have argued, we've talked about it. We've done a ton of stuff off the air about the Super Bowl in Philly and how much more I know that, like, you enjoyed that one. But I also think Philly enjoyed that one because it wasn't something that was happening every other year. But you going back there's just a different level of appreciation for you. Obviously, like, you have the perfect personality for people to like. Like, there's a reason why so many people like you
too. You're conscious that when I like, and Bo and I joke about this, when we go down to the locker room after the NFC Championship, and Dom's like, "Come on in, Boo. Like, come in the locker room," and I'm like, Bo's like, let's go. We go right to the back. He's looking for everybody. Like, I'm kind of like, oh, fuck, man. I'm that guy right now. It's just not, I certainly enjoy going back to Philly, tailgating, going to the games. Like, I like going down to the locker room because I feel like it's at least relatively warranted. If I go back to New England, like, first off, it's far. As far as fuck.
That's the other thing,
like,
too.
Right? I don't like leaving my house. The Rams were going to have me out a couple weeks ago. People think I hate the Rams. The Rams are far.
I was excited for that Rams visit. Didn't work.
Yeah, it would have been cool. And I got I'm not like anti-Rams. And I'm really not anti-Pats. Like, I'm with Bill every week. I love the guy. I was with Jules. Jules was sitting in my fucking suite at the Eagles game, packing a dip, second half of the game, sitting there the whole time. every time I see Jules, it's like you catch right up. Like, that's my homeboy. Same thing with Dola. Texting with him this week. I love the Pats. But the problem is like when you go back to a place like that, I do feel, and it's not something that makes me uncomfortable. It just makes me feel like, I probably shouldn't go. Like, one of a million championships. You know what I mean? I'm a little face on a mosaic of tiny faces. And that's the way it should be. But in Philly, it's just more appropriate to go back and be celebrated and all that stuff. So long story short, it really is just about like your impact. It feels presumptive to go back and get any treatment in New England. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even want to turn it into that kind of thing, but I'm just saying I think the audience already knows this is listening to you, that you would go out of your way. It's almost like the person now, like we were talking about at the beginning of, would you go up to somebody, the celebrity that you would have some kind of are you saying hi to them? Yeah. You get to a point where it's like, even if it would go well, I'm so worried about being just another guy that's bugging them that maybe that's the move. And I think you apply that to your visits in Philadelphia of like, the last thing I want to be is a guy who's in the back of the locker room celebrating a chance to go to another Super Bowl, while active players could be like, why the fuck are these guys here right now? And I think you're very conscious of that, which is actually like a good thing to have. But I think it's pretty clear everybody loves you there and you're okay. It's okay.
No, I know it's fine. It's just fucking JetBlue out of Richmond. It's like, it's a long way to get up there to Gillette. Now, I intend on going back to a damn game. I think it'd be a lot of fun, not to be recognized or anything, but go sit in the stands. But yeah, no, the Cam thing, man, if you won the damn Super Bowl, that would mean you had done your job. And I'm not saying he didn't do his job. I'm not saying he failed. Like, listen, people make a big deal about the fumble thing. But like, if you're a great quarterback, and I count him in that echelon, like not of like,
I think he's pretty good. I think he's really good. I don't think he was. I don't think he's one of the all-time greats at the position.
No, that's what I mean. Like he was a great player, and I think there's a ton of adjectives that people could probably argue over. That like that's the worst thing. We have to set the parameters of the exercises. That you could be good, you can be great, you can be like really good. You can be a fucking Hall of Famer, and you can be an all-time player. He's definitely not in that all-time player category. He could probably have a case for the Hall of Fame because of his importance to the position.
I don't know. The quarterbacks that don't win one. I mean, I think we put too many I think we put too many quarterbacks in that win one where you're like, that guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
I just don't want anybody to think I'm saying Cam's a Hall of Famer, because quietly I could give a fuck less. The whole point of what I'm trying to say is he's good enough that if he won a Super Bowl, like everybody knows he's the reason why. If Josh Allen had won a Super Bowl this year and didn't win an MVP, which I still think he could, but probably looks unlikely due to the All-Pro voting, like that helps his Hall of Fame chances. You know what I mean? Like I would have said personally, and I can't think for Cam, obviously, I've never been in a position to be an MVP of anything but 13-year-old baseball.
It's a good year though.
Right.
No one saw it coming.
I would have said Super Bowl, but that's not to say he's like a bad guy for saying the other thing. I get what he's saying.
No, it's not a bad guy thing. It's actually a very NBA answer. Okay. And I also think like Cam probably deserves credit for giving us the answer that I would expect Cam to think. He nailed it because
too.
Right. But whenever you go through this kind of stuff, like I was a huge Charles Barkley guy, right? There's no way in hell he would rather have that MVP with Phoenix than an NBA championship. There's just no way. But then when people water it down to like, whose career would you rather have, Robert Horry or Charles Barkley? You're like, give me a fucking break. Okay. Yeah. Like I would rather be at some point considered one of the best players in the world than a dude that was a terrific role player. And I know he scored a lot in the beginning of his career, like a terrific role player that hit a bunch of shots and ended up collecting all these rings. But like, that starts to become like a little different. Like, would you rather be you or Lawrence Taylor without a ring? You'd rather be Lawrence Taylor. Like,
I'd probably be Lawrence. I'd rather. Well,
come on. Like to be the guy, the most feared guy.
Probably, but I'm sure Lawrence Taylor. Well, he has a fucking Super
Bowl. No, that's what I'm saying. Like hypothetically,
let's say
take his ring away.
Julius Peppers, like anybody would rather be Julius Peppers, but the point is, like, I don't know what Julius Peppers is thinking when his head hits the pillow. Like, is he like, man, I would give it all back for a ring? Like, I don't know.
But I also like in Cam's, it's not in defense of Cam because he doesn't, but to like argue Cam's side of it, I've noticed this, and it happens in basketball all the time, is that like when a guy doesn't have an NBA championship and he wins a gold medal, he'll be like, this is more important. And you're like, no, it isn't. But you're going to say that because you don't have the other one. Right. Well, there's a little patriotic thing, which I think is, unfortunately,
to
thinning.
your point, it's the big deal. I mean, I'm not really thinking about the finals. I mean, I'm a world champion.
Right. But I can't imagine anybody that's like at the top level. And again, if you're good enough to be on Team USA, it means you're that good. It means you're probably one of the best players in the NBA. It's probably the best player on your team. And then it's like, hey, how come you never won an NBA championship? And like, look, the Jordan part of it haunts these guys. And now we're to a point where like we're not even allowed to say guys are really special unless they've won one. We can't do it with quarterbacks. But there's a very selfish way of arguing like whatever your accomplishment was. Like Derek Fisher would probably rather have his career than Charles Barkley's. And I can't ever get there, but that's what I always feel like I hear. So I don't think Cam is saying something that there hasn't been some version of that hasn't been said before, but it feels more like a basketball answer in a sport like football where you're not supposed to say that.
To answer your LT question, obviously LT, but if you're asking somebody like, even somebody who was like twice or 2.5 or 3 or 4 times the player I was and didn't get a ring, like, I don't know how that guy feels.
You'd rather be Derek Thomas? Do you think Derek Thomas would have rather been Lawrence Taylor? Derek Thomas isn't. Now I'm just kind of making up a ton of shit here.
No, this is really good though. It was a good thought exercise. No, because
all right. Say Derek Thomas has if Derek Thomas has a ring, then he just goes, You're just rewriting it. And we just took away LT's rings anyway. So
yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I guess long story short is like Cam Newton's being honest, and I got no issue with that. I just think had he won the Super Bowl, even if he hadn't won the MVP, this might be just the way I prioritize things, but I don't remember who's the MVP year to year. Like, you have to remind me that Lamar's won 2 of them. You know, like, I know he's
those are a little easy to remember because they're so recent.
Yeah, but I'm just like picking something out of thin air. Like, how many MVPs did Drew Brees win? Do you know?
I don't think he won any, did he?
I don't know. I don't think so either.
Quarterback one was tough. Did he have that one year where he just absolutely lit it up statistically? Let's see here.
You think if Aaron Rodgers didn't have a ring?
No, he came in second twice. 3 times. Holy shit.
You think he's like
4 times?
There's no way he's like he would never say that out loud.
Who?
Drew Brees.
No, especially
most surprised by saying, "Yeah, I'd rather be MVP."
Brady. Because I believe it. But I also believe Cam.
Real quick, couple mail bag things. This is, people love to do life advice on my show through my mailbag. Quite frankly, they're some of the only mailbags that are worth the shit sometimes. This is from a guy who says he's 6'3", 210. He's got a girlfriend of 1 year.
Congrats.
I guess they just moved in. Yeah, he's happy. He's a Pats fan. She's a Giants fan. And they're worried about decorating because of the teams and how that might sow dissension in the house or, I don't know, like lower morale. Like, what do you think?
Are you serious? Because somebody sent the same one to us. So are you fucking with us?
How could I be fucking with you? I would have to recreate the exact question out of thin air.
Yeah.
This guy clearly really wants to know. Well, I'll give you a crack at it since my name's on the show. I'll try to go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't think people should have NFL decor inside the house, like in just like common areas. Like I understand like the living room, man. Like you want like a Miami Dolphins pillow or something, but like maybe put that in the man cave. And so like, you know, unless you're, I don't know, a super fan, which would necessitate you guys definitely being on the same page. Like, I don't think the guy that lives in the house is painted royal blue and red in Buffalo, his wife is like a Packers fan. I'm pretty sure they both would fuck Josh Allen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things. So my thing is just get over it. And especially because those two teams are going to play each other in anything of consequence for some time, possibly. Like, think about it. They both have to get to the Super Bowl for it to be a real issue the same year. Like, nobody cares. Buddy's trip to Gillette. Also, imagine you guys are fucking fans of the same team, and every time you want to go see your team play, it's like, I like Spider-Man too. You know what I mean? That whole thing. Well, you might not. I'm not being funny, but like, it is hard when you share the same hobbies, bro, and you got to go the same fucking places. Like, when you want to go play golf, if your wife likes golf, that sucks.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'll be like, oh, my wife loves golf. I'm like, hey, real tactical planning by you.
Well, if you love golf enough, I guess you would look at it as like, at least I get to play more, as opposed to being with somebody that despises that I'm doing this. But I always think like golf's popularity and the NFL's popularity is just a break from family.
But you know what I mean, though. No, I agree.
I do know what
I
you mean.
totally agree.
Yeah, like working out. Look, I like working out. I like women. I don't want to work out with them.
Yeah.
I don't want to date somebody that I'm like, what did you do today?
I like women, but I don't want to work out with them.
It's not sexist. I don't work out with guys.
It's like the Cam Newton thing. If you had said, I'd rather work out with women, people would be like, fucking creep.
I don't want to work out with anybody, by the way, for the record. I get in, I get out, and I get it done. You know, progress. Jeff Speakman by 50 was what I wrote down in my diary when I was 13.
So what do you think about these teams?
What do I think about this relationship?
Just get over it and move in together. And
I kind of like this guy and his girlfriend, showing up to Restoration Hardware being like, do you have any like chargers, like some of the San Diego stuff, any of those tapestries, or like a dresser with like Antonio Gates in the mirror or something? So if you want to keep putting up posters, I kind of admire them. Would I want to do that at this stage of my life? No. Like, when's the last time you hung up a poster? Although I did put up a Van Halen 1984 tapestry behind me at the old spot because I didn't have any backdrop and I thought it'd be hilarious. And they kept editing out the entire time with the angel baby smoking cigarettes. I ordered it for that reason and hung it up in the back. And then they kept cutting it out the whole time. So I was like, this joke is completely backfiring. Then I bought a house on the water. So then I think what happens here is we know we're supposed to tell them, grow up and don't decorate your place like this. I say go the other way with it. Embrace the fact that you found somebody else romantically that's okay at adulthood to be hanging up a fucking Sports Illustrated,
like House Divided kind of thing. You know how people cut half a jersey?
Mark Gastineau.
You got you've got a Giants room, a Patriots room. The mailbox on one side, it's got like Drake May's face. The other side, who knows?
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders.
And you could have a little welcome mat that says stomp them out because of snowstorms in your boots. And she turns it over when she gets in a fight with you, she throws it away and you have to order another one.
I don't think this is a big fucking deal. But like when you get in a fight, do NFL superfans that are at odds, do they like dig on each other's team? Instead
I do think they do.
Insults,
yeah. But I think really what we're finding is they're soulmates. They found each other, and that should be celebrated.
Yeah. And then the last thing you say when you walk out the door and you need some air is like, you fucking paid Danny dimes. You piece of shit. Your favorite team.
Yeah, but then what if he comes home and like dinner isn't ready and he's like, do your job. And then she goes, that guy wasn't a good GM and was fired.
Yes.
Pick up takeout.
You want to get the groceries and fix the food? That doesn't work in today's NFL. That's an antiquated Bill Parcells thing.
And then she, like, if you haven't cleaned out the garage, she's like, what about Captain No Days Off over here?
Captain No Days Off.
Yeah. He's like, it's Saturday. I want to watch a movie. I asked you to clean the garage. No days off, right? Don't you remember the parade? Don't you remember the parade? No days off. Do your jobs. Do you remember these themes from your God?
We had a fucking video today or this week on Inside the NFL that was classic. It was from before the Eagles game in 2000. what, 3 or 4. It was Bill's speech the night before at the hotel. Do you remember, like, just not to put you on the spot, but
well, I wasn't on the team.
No, but I mean, do you remember the footage? Because I wasn't on the team either, but I saw it. Do you remember?
There's a lot of footage. Remind me.
So I didn't want to, tell you something you already knew.
Got it.
But fucking Bill, they got a hold of the Eagles parade route. You remember this whole thing? And the Eagles had put out their parade route in like the local paper and shit. So Bill's up there Saturday night, and he's like, and they'll be going down Broad Street. The Eagles will be in double-decker buses. They'll be doing a flyover from like, whatever aircraft base. He goes, if you're into that. And he gives them like the whole rundown. He's like,
he's
so
a
that
boat
should
guy.
be fun.
Talking about the Philadelphia parade after the game. All right, it's 11 o'clock in case any of you want to attend that. It's going to go from Broad Street up to Washington Avenue, past City Hall, then down to Benjamin Franklin Parkway, and we'll end up at the Art Museum. And the Eagles will be in double-decker buses. And the Willow Grove Naval Air Station is going to fly over with their jets, too, in case you're interested in that.
I just thought it just made me think about that video there, but you haven't seen it. Not a Pats fan. I bet Dan's seen it.
Listen to you, man.
Dan
Shaughnessy?
Like, I'm just trying to have fun with it because I feel bad for my friend. It's like
I stand with Dan.
I stand with Dan as well. We stand with Dan.
Sounds like, I don't know.
Dorchester Dan.
Couple zingers. There's your third zinger on it now.
No, it's not a zinger.
Are you sure you stand with him? You stand behind him with a knife?
I stand right with him.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, come on in with your mail and your videos, please.
There is a 47-year-old tech billionaire named Ryen Johnson. He is obsessed with life extension and the idea of living forever. He's got a Netflix doc called Don't Die, The Man Who Wants to Live Forever. He recently shared erection data from his sleep and compared it to his 19-year-old son's erection data, which were shockingly similar. My question for you is, how old do you think Ryen Johnson will be when he dies, if he ever does?
The question should be, what's going on with this dude? Have you seen this dude, Ryan?
Yeah. I mean, when I saw the erection memes, even though I saw them from people that were stealing from each other, I enjoyed them every time. Like just a cartoon of the dad coming in and be like, wake up, I need your erection data. Like, Dad, it's 1 a.m.
Dude.
This is fucking bizarre, but who knows? Maybe in 10 years, be like, he was onto something here. I've seen this stuff. I think the great thing about like the fighting aging is I want to fight aging now, but it's not because I don't want to be 120. Can you imagine the text I'd be sending then? Can you imagine what I'd be saying at the checkout counter? Fucking somebody would have a sweatshirt that was green, doesn't even say Vermont, and I'm proposing to him. So I don't even want to be that old.
Listen, but by the time you're 120, they give you grace. You know what
do
I'm
they?
saying? Yeah, they do. I'm going to tell you a story.
I wouldn't want to do that to the people I'm around.
Well, no, you wouldn't want to do that either. But by the time you're 120, like 30 years from now, it's going to be insane. Like, we're going to have the best quality of life. Like,
I don't know. We might be in pods. Old Person Island. They were doing that on Succession. Living Plus. Are you fucking kidding me? Cruise ships on land.
Yeah.
That was the genius part about that whole thing, is that the writer's room had to be like, okay, what business could they pitch that's kind of insane, but everybody's pretending it's a real thing? And it was like Living Plus. I love that show so much.
That's an incredible show. I'm just trying to think of what the name of the company was. Royco?
Waystar? Royco Waystar, yeah.
Yeah.
Conglomerate.
Yeah. Conglomerate.
They had their hands in a lot of stuff. That's why I agreed with Kendall. Like, cut the fat. Get out of cruises. Get out of parks. News. Revamp it. What's going on in the Sub-Sahara? That sounds like Homework the Show. I'd watch that.
I just don't want to go back to the question. I just don't want to get CTE. That's pretty much it. Like, I just want to get what is that?
Season 2, all the scripts from season 2. Yeah, I know you don't want to get CTE.
I would love to live to be 100. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
know.
It'd be kind of lit, dude.
You've made CTA jokes with us when we've been out with it. Bum me out, man. I don't like hearing them.
Well, these guys can attest. I certainly don't have CTE.
Does that align? Are they checking your erection data in the middle of the night? Or how do we know?
No, but as for that kid, he's not a kid anymore. Move out, dude.
Yeah, what the fuck?
That's the lead is like, bro, like move the fuck out. Like,
and why did you have to tell everybody?
He's not just tracking his erection data, he's getting his blood plasma infused into him as well.
Yeah, well, guess what? This is I mean, have you seen this guy? You've seen the guy. The guy does not look young to me. He just looks like
he looks hungover all the time to me.
Yeah,
just that whitewashed, emaciated next day when you see your buddy and you're like, "What the fuck did you do last night?"
Yeah, so I might die a little before him. No biggie.
Blue Man Group is calling it quits after 33 years on tour and over 82,000 gallons of blue paint. And as we all know, paint negatively impacts the environment primarily through the release of volatile organic compounds.
Oh man, these guys are in the crosshairs.
Yeah, should we consider the Blue Man Group eco-terrorists?
Yeah. I went to Blue Man Group with a girl and she was like, when they asked for the volunteer, she's like, they're going to pick me. And I was like, okay, fucking smoke. Like, all right. Like, you look good tonight, but they're just going to pick you.
Blue Man Group picking you up on stage, getting blue.
She's like, they picked me. She's like, they picked me last time. And I was like, well, there's different dudes. It's not the same three guys. Like they can't. They're not like Nightcrawler, even though he was blue. You can't just they can't do a show in Vegas and Boston the same night. And because I didn't like start going through the whole portal system with her. And she was like, yeah, they're going to pick me. And they picked her 2 for 2. Owned me.
As one of the preeminent producers of Travelogues,
yes.
What locations are you currently scouting?
The Japans.
Oh, you should hit up my uncle. My uncle is a East
Ninja?
Asian. No,
Sensei?
He's lived in Japan for the past 40 years. He's like an East Asian professor. I went to Japan. He toured me all around. He knows everything and speaks fluently, so it was awesome.
Really?
You should see Shogun.
I have.
It's not
twice.
Good.
Dude, what are you talking about?
It's more of his Mad Men takes.
The dialogue. I haven't been.
You don't like Mad Men?
No, I haven't. I'm an episode into Mad Men. It's actually pretty good.
It's not pretty good. It's
well,
arguably
give it time,
the greatest
bro. You want me
TV
to,
show.
This is like the Jaden Daniels conversation. You're trying to put him in the Hall of Fame. I've only seen one episode.
Yeah, but that open? You're an old gold man? Nothing I could get you to do? I love my old golds.
Man, women did not have it good.
They didn't. You know when they didn't have it good is I just got done reading Henry V. We're going to have that book review with Dan Jones, the author, that's coming out. I'm interviewing him tomorrow morning. Very excited.
Did anyone have it good in a feudal society?
See, I'm glad you brought that up because he goes through in the epilogue about like the criticisms of Henry V. And by the way, Shakespeare, I get that his resume's pretty good professionally. Like he pumped out some bangers, but there's just not enough people talking about Shakespeare's depiction of Henry V and who he was and kind of tarnishing his image as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to get into that with the author tomorrow, but
it's like the Apprentice sort of deal.
The author starts going through like scholars' opinions, Henry V, the warrior prince. And they're like, hey, he was this, he was that, he was all of these things. And you're like, okay. And I do think we just make massive mistakes applying today's principles, today's sensibilities to stuff that is like, in this case, we're talking about stuff that is over 600 years ago. All right. And one of his criticisms was like he was a misogynist. You're like, oh, no shit. Late 1300s, early 1400s, wasn't super into the women's movement back then while he was ruling England and trying to take over France. You're telling me he didn't have fucking time for the vagina monologues? It just blows my mind that like a scholar who's alive today would suggest somebody from the medieval times. Like, why bother?
He never used to pick the kids up from school. He always just made her do it.
Dude, he never made it back from France when his first child was born. So, yeah, got him. Bad dad. He died.
Genghis Khan didn't take care of his family.
Never paid property taxes.
No.
Like there just has to be some point where we go, hey, like, yep. That just shit. It was the medieval times, man. Have you seen any of the TV shows?
Who was the king during the bubonic plague? Edward III. Yeah, he fucked that up.
Henry V was awesome. I'm here to tell you.
Best Henry?
Henry the serial killer.
Well, Harry Connick Jr., but doesn't go by Henry.
I mean, out of all the Henrys, there were 4 before him and at least 3.
Henry Rodriguez. Remember that? The O. Henry in Chicago. It's pretty good. See, Wade Miley got signed by the Reds.
Yeah.
It's a minor league deal.
I'll check it out.
You won't. I'll send it to you. The Russillo Book Club.
No, actually, I'm reading
Grant,
this book right now.
The Pass Coverage Glossary. Yeah. I could read that. I don't know any of the terminology.
Shout out to Cameron Soren.
All right.
Okay,
Final
run that. One thing Ryan was excited to do, so I saved it to the very end, was just look at a couple of these coaching. Well, the thing was, I hit Ryan up the other day. I was like, "Did you see?" He's like, "Dude, I saw."
We didn't even talk about it.
Duval.
How do we make this as much about the players and making this about bringing out the best in you? That's what this is about. Jacksonville, the community, Duval. How do we do this together?
For me, it's the eyes darting around the room afterwards. That's what made it. I thought it was AI. Nowadays, you're like, did that person really, was that real?
Yeah, I had never seen the lead up. It's even worse.
Oh, he was doing players, coaches, the city.
I'd love for a coach to be like, hey, I'm going to live here part-time. I can give a fuck about this place. Yeah. And you could give a fuck about what I say about the community. And my wife will probably show up to a couple of things, some fundraisers or whatever. If I get 11 wins next year, you could give a shit if I ever show up to anything. We all know that.
Moves to London.
Right. Like everybody knows what you're supposed to say. And you can see he was kind of excited in the lead up of this whole thing. But when we were talking about it, right, it's bad. It's pretty bad. He didn't nail it. He thought he was. Maybe when he was writing it the night before. I don't know if somebody worked with him on it. But I think something that we talked about that I want to get into as we finish is that even though we know who these guys are, we don't really know them. We all know their names because you see him calling plays on Sunday. And then with Liam, he's been this just rising star through the ranks now, whether it's the McVay stuff and then Kentucky and then Tampa. And then it's like, okay. And, people don't love the timeline of events. I didn't have a problem with him going to Jacksonville because ultimately everybody else would have done the exact same thing. You're like, wait, now I'm in charge of everything and you're going to pay me as much as Ben Johnson just got paid. Okay, hold on. I got to call my wife and then I'm going to hide for a day, whatever. I think a lot of people do that kind of stuff. We completely dismiss the fact, whether it's Sirianni's one where it looked like he was late to his own press conference, or was it Gannon out in Arizona? Pew-pew. Yeah, it was making all the noises and stuff.
Vertical shots.
We forget that this is the first time they're ever actually the face of the thing that we all care about. And it's kind of the first time they're really ever in the spotlight. And I think that's just a weird spot for a lot of people. I think people just, as simply as they get really nervous up there. I thought Raheem Morris, when he was introduced to the Tampa Bay Bucks, remember when he was he's like, there's Mike Allstar. Once you're a Buck, you're a Buck. It was like he was doing the West Side Story stuff, like Jets, and you're just like, what?
Fingers.
and Raheem, everybody likes, and he's come full circle from that moment. He was so young too when he was introduced. We completely forget how nervous these guys are probably in this spot, because for them, it's their first time, and we're conditioned to the coaches that have already done it a million times, and the head coaches that finally get their seasoning and don't do this stuff. So it's almost like auto that they have weird first impressions.
Well, I think the worst thing is that we're evaluating the impressions, and that as a coach, you go up there and it's almost like a campaign speech. And so you're probably not being yourself completely. I'm sure the good ones find a way to be themselves. But it's almost like right now, the worse the press conference is, the better. The worse the reviews are on the press conference, the better.
Better the coach will be.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell.
Gannon, I thought, has impressed people at times, especially with the way the defense played in the second season down there in his stint in Arizona. Juxtaposed to I'm sure they said something good about Urban Meyer's press conference when he finished. He turned out to be the real hand grenade in that class. So you just never know. I think it also says this is a lot of these guys are my age now. I found out that Ben Johnson's younger than me.
Yeah, welcome to the party.
I was shocked. I thought he was 40. I kind of always put myself in a position where I think I'm just a little bit younger than the coaches. And people who are 39 and 40 are not immune to being fucking goofy and just uncool at times. Because you get older doesn't mean you get smoother or cooler.
But it's their first time, even if they're older. I mean, even if you're 50, what are we talking about here? It's not even an age thing, even though I understand what you're saying. And it's always kind of like that wake up call. I was hanging out at Adam Vinatieri because I was cool, there's still one athlete that's older than I am. And then it's just gone. It's going to be gone soon for you too, buddy. But
well, that's true. There's always Larry Nance. Is he still playing?
Larry Nance Jr. or Senior? Because Senior's definitely not playing anymore.
Yeah, he's not playing anymore.
Dude, Larry Nance Jr. isn't 40.
He's not my age? See, that's the thing. I think everybody's older than me.
No way. He's 32, dude.
He's 32?
Just because you look just like him.
That's my little brother.
He's a great dude.
And he knows about the thing.
He does. Ran into him.
I don't know why he thought he was my age, but it shows you how much NBA I've been watching.
Did you just compliment yourself indirectly by thinking you look 32?
Maybe. Got a haircut today.
Looks pretty good, Chris.
Thanks. Appreciate it. No, but guys are, and I don't think usually it's not the older guys. It really isn't. That's what I'm saying though. Matt Eberflus, do you remember anything he did at his press conference? Because he's playing a role of the elder statesman. His press conference is going to be more buttoned up and authoritarian, and the younger guys got to feel like they got to bring the energy. You know what I mean? And they also got to act hard too. The only problem that I think Ben Johnson had was the left-right thing. Did you see this?
Yeah, I didn't love his video.
I didn't love the video of him walking in and starting his own applause.
But I think he's so nervous where, look, to the Eberflus point, I thought he was so polished in Hard Knocks that I was worried.
Right. It's
there are dudes that are so good at it. And I don't even mean this as becoming a head coach. There can be somebody that's so polished that I'll encounter in some business thing and I'm talking about other shit that I'm working on or whatever. And if somebody's that good immediately, I'm to the point now where I'd rather you just fuck it up and be a little nervous, because if you're then I'm okay, this guy already has the advantage on me. Yeah. What kind of magic powers is this guy going to have?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I do think there's something too, the longer you've been at it, to be conditioned to talking to the media and, being up there and really knowing who you are, it's the longer you've been going without a head coaching job, in some situations. And there's probably a reason that people weren't jumping out of the gym for you. Somebody like Lou Anarumo, who I think is a hell of a football coach, he just got fired in Cincinnati. People had talked about Lou Anarumo being a head coach a couple of years ago. Didn't happen. A lot of those guys are not head coaches for reasons. That's okay. But there's probably a reason they haven't been up at the podium yet. So some of these younger guys that are on the fast track to success are just not ready for that spotlight.
Yeah, totally. But I still think there'd be older guys, though, that would be nervous about it, too, to be honest with you.
Probably. Pete
because
Carroll aced his fucking press conference the other day. He's done a million of them, though.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, with Pete doesn't have to pretend. Everybody already knows who he's been. We've been seeing it for 30 years.
That's like you, man. You don't have to pretend. Everybody knows who you are. Been seeing you for 20 years. 20 years?
On the air, 22.
22. The one and only Ryen Russillo. Thanks so much for spending 90 with me. My dude.
That's for the 22. Yeah, man. Always great catching up, and I'll let you know if I cancel my flight in New Orleans.
Don't do it.